guys, and welcome to my January wrap up. I have read quite a few books this month and I'm quite happy with it. The first thing I'll say is I have read these books and some other novellas in the biannual Bibliothon. I will leave a link to that wrap up down below so you can watch that after if you want to hear my thoughts on those books. I read a lot of other books this month though, so that is what I want to focus on today. The first thing I finished was A Darkness at the End by Ruth Frances Long. This is the third and final book in the forget what the name of the series is, Crack and Everything, that series, and it's about some fairy tales and legends in Dublin city centre, and I wasn't too pleased with it. I'm just gonna cut myself off there. I didn't like it too much. It could have been better, and that's kind of where I'm gonna leave my thoughts on the end of this series. It's the third book, I can't go into details. Wasn't too crazy on it though. The next thing I read then was Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. It is a story about a girl who writes and illustrates a webcomic online, and it's kind of like an online sensation and no one knows who she is because she does it anonymously, and it's about a boy who moves to her school who's a big fan of her webcomic and he doesn't know that she's the one who writes it. And it's such a great story. I don't usually go for contemporaries. They're not really my thing unless it has a plot that sounds particularly cute, which this did. What I loved about this book was that it dealt with some social anxiety and there was illustrations. I'm going to see if I can find some for you. There's illustrations from the webcomic inside, which I love. I love books with illustrations, and because it just suited this so well and you could kind of see where parts of her life inspired her webcomic, it was really cool. Really enjoyed this book and I recommend it if you're into contemporary, but even if you just think the story sounds cute, it's a great story. The next thing I read was the oldest book on my TBR, and that was Magic by Angie Sage. This is a children's fantasy book about a wizarding family, the Sages, and the world that they live in. It opens on one snowy night when the father, whose name I forget, finds a baby in the middle of this snowy passageway and takes him into his family, not knowing that his own newborn son, Septimus, has just died at their own home. And so the parents end up raising this new baby as their own and follows the consequences of that. What I liked about this book was the really whimsical writing style and how this was such a feel-good fantasy book. Even though some of the things that were happening were quite intense, it was always had that like happy little flow to it. But here's the thing, yeah, I don't know if I'll be finishing this series. While there were a lot of elements to this that I really enjoyed, it was always just kind of at that passive level where I'm like, oh, this is good, I like this. I never really engaged with the story at any point, and I feel like that really hurt my relationship with the characters and with the plot. And for that reason, I think I'm going to leave this series where it is, because I have positive memories of this book and maybe at some point in the future I'll pick it up again and decide to continue. But as it is, I think I'm going to finish up with this series on this book, the first one, and just have pleasant memories and kind of just end it there. The next thing I read was Wonder Woman by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first in the DC Icons series. Is it a series? It follows, you guessed it, Wonder Woman, Diana, Princess of the Amazons, on this little island, which name I've forgotten, but it's an island that, generally speaking, you cannot access unless you are an Amazon. Diana really wants to prove herself to the other Amazons on the island, and one day she stumbles across someone who's not supposed to be there, and she can either help them and have the island kind of tear itself apart, or not help them. And the story starts at that decision point, and I enjoyed it. But like with the last book, I enjoyed it at that kind of passive level that I never really engaged with it too much. I really love the Greek mythology because Amazons and myths and oracles and stuff, that's all Greek mythology. It's really interesting if you ever want to study classics. But I enjoyed seeing that in this, and I also enjoyed the other plot, though I found it to be a little bit predictable. I saw it coming. If you just look at the names of the characters and you know anything about Greek mythology, you'll know who to look out for. Parts set in modern day and parts set on this island where time has no meaning. The last full novel I completed was Remembrance by Meg Cabot. This is the final novel in the Mediator series. It follows Sue Simon and her boyfriend Jesse and the ghosts and the mysteries and the general lighthearted fun mystery that is the Mediator series. I really enjoyed this series. I actually had a couple of little problems with it, but without going into huge detail I can't really say it because it's a big spoiler, but there were a couple of things where I was just kind of like, I don't know if the author quite understands this. Anywho, It was an enjoyable book that I really liked, and I liked that it had the same feel as the original books did. I felt like I just dropped right back into that world, and I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I finally decided to finish this series because it's one that I read a lot when I was younger, and now that I'm older it's nice to kind of see the characters in a slightly older way. The next book I've only read 2 pages so far, so I don't know if I should include it in the wrap up, but what I'm currently reading is The Infinite by Laurie M. Lee. This is Under the Dust Jacket. Isn't it so pretty? Look at it, look at it. It's so pretty. This is the sequel to Gates of Thread and Stone, and it is a dystopian book that I'm reasonably well enjoying. I don't really have much thoughts of it, like I said, 2 pages in. I don't usually include a TBR in my wrap-up videos, but there's only one book on my TBR, don't get too excited, that is over a year old. This book, The Young Elites by Mary Lou, is the oldest book on my TBR, and it's the only book over a year old. The only book over a year old. So I decided in February I would make it a goal to read this trilogy. Now the thing that makes me hesitant about this is because I'm pretty sure it's dystopian, and if you watched my other wrap up for the biannual Bibliothon you'll know that I was kind of just done with the dystopian genre. But I've had a quick flick through it and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of fantasy elements. You know, if this is more dystopian or more fantasy, tell me in the comments without spoilers, but I'm really hoping it leans towards fantasy. And this are, oh wow, these are the books that I read in January. You cannot see the titles. You know what, you saw it, it's fine. And that's all I have for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.